A jury is hearing evidence in a civil case against Seattle Children's.
The families of 77 patients sued over treatment they received in 2019 after possible exposure to mold in the hospital's operating rooms. Chris Ingalls is here now to explain how the trial that started today is the first in a series involving patients who did not actually get infected from this deadly mold, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. This is the thing that's a little bit different. So after months of reporting by King 5 in 2019, Seattle Children's admitted that mold in some of its older operating rooms killed 7 children over a 20-year period. The mold was eventually traced to faulty air vents, sickened more than a dozen others. The trial that's starting this week is about patients that lawyers say suffered even though they were not infected. The renowned Seattle Children's Hospital was the one hope for this little girl from Montana, born with a heart defect more serious than her doctor had ever seen before.
Nobody expected her to survive.
Jared Kaplan says doctors performed 9 hours of open heart surgery that gave his tiny daughter a fighting chance. It also might have given her something else that Jared didn't learn until a pharmacist handed him a medication he didn't recognize, according to the family's lawyer.
That's not my daughter, that's someone else. No, your daughter was exposed to aspergillus during surgery.
The Kaplan family says that's how they learned that baby Weston may have been exposed to aspergillus during her 2018 surgery. The mold is generally harmless, but in a sterile environment like an operating room, it can infect an immune-compromised patient with lethal consequences.
We basically were told that if she doesn't take it, she could die.
The Kaplan family claims the additional blood draws and antifungal treatments to prevent an aspergillus infection caused their fragile baby more pain.
Driving around, screaming at the top of her lungs. I mean, she was screaming so hard that she was blue. And she wasn't our child. She was gray, ashen, she was throwing up constantly.
Families of 4 young patients who may have been exposed to aspergillus at Children's are having their day in court, with more than 70 other plaintiffs who likewise received antifungal treatments are waiting for their suits to go to trial.
Importantly, none of the plaintiffs ever developed an infection or got sick from aspergillus.
Defense lawyers have admitted the hospital is negligent for exposing patients to aspergillus, but say these 4 children never became infected and 2 suffered no side effects at all from the preventative treatments.
We have admitted negligence for the exposure to aspergillus, but you still have to think whether there was injury, harm, damages caused by this.
The hospital says no, there was no lasting harm to these children. This trial with 4 plaintiffs will be the bellwether that may decide how the trials of those more than 70 other plaintiffs in similar circumstances will proceed. So Joyce and Greg, this is just the beginning of kind of a long process here.
What about those who claim that they were infected? There were lawsuits about that, weren't there?
Yeah, some of those cases were quietly settled, but the cases that are, they're not in the same class because those children, this is a class of children that were not infected. So there's about 20 cases where families say their children were infected with aspergillus at the hospital. Those cases have yet to go to trial. Again, more on the court's timeline, which this is just going to take a while.
Almost 7 months after devastating winter storms caused flooding in homes across central Texas, Austin Code Enforcement tells us they're averaging 4 times the call volume than they did this time last year. And the main source of complaints? Mold. Caitlin Carmoot explains.
It is April 5th. And this is what the mold looks like in my apartment.
This is David Rojas's Mueller Flats apartment following the winter storm. There's black mold lining the walls. He lived under these conditions for weeks until finally
there was a massive campaign to get code to come out to inspect units.
It wasn't necessarily unexpected that we would see a spike in these things as a result of the winter storm.
Mueller Flats wasn't the only complex hit. Problems span across Austin. In March of 2020, the Austin Code Department averaged about 30 calls for mold. This year, that number spiked to over 120. So now there's a resolution on the table.
We're looking to improve our responses through our inspection processes. The biggest purchase will be providing our inspectors with moisture meters.
The Austin Code Department believes these moisture meters can properly assess the mold found in apartments like Mueller Flats. But they're only used after a repair is completed to address the possibility of future mold growth, a process Rojas argues doesn't help in the interim.
Do you think that, that investment is going to help improve this problem in the future?
What you're talking about is an improvement. At the same time, there's not really an addressing of housing for people who are going through these situations. These are living, breathing people that have to breathe that air.
Caitlin Carmo, KXAN News.
The Code Department is also looking to increase access to renter's insurance and create a rental housing assistance program. They're asking the City of Austin for an upfront sum of $44,000 and an extra $7,500 annually.
Mold has become an unwanted roommate for one Belmont resident, and she says she's scared for the safety of her family.
And it's bad too. In a News 12 exclusive, Ellie Murillo takes us inside the Bathgate Avenue apartment and tells us how management has responded to the issue.
Sharima Walker says several buckets now filled with water are the result of multiple leaks that started in her apartment back in January.
Every day we walk in, I don't know if half my ceiling's gonna be down. Like a horror movie.
Her kitchen entryway, bedroom, closet, and bathroom now covered in mold. She says her cries to management and 311 complaints have gone ignored.
My bathroom looked like a cave, because that's what it looks like, with all the mold that's coming in, and it's not stopping.
Sharima says that she's been living in her Bathgate apartment since 2008. She says her greatest concern is her 9-year-old daughter, Brooklyn, who suffers from asthma.
You don't want to leave work, come home, and open your door and be scared to open your door because you don't know if it's going to be a flood. The other day we came in, the closet in the living room, flood. It's so much water coming down out of the closet. I don't even know why it's so much water coming in that one area.
A place where memories were created, she says, is now tarnished, hoping for a permanent solution to be granted.
This should not be like this. It should not be like this at all.
We reached out to Wavecrest Management and they responded with a statement saying that a contractor was sent to repair the leak and conduct a mold remediation and prevention work yesterday evening. They say they are optimistic that both issues will be resolved. In Belmont, Eli Morillo, News 12.
Since we're in the summer season officially, air conditioners bringing in cool air into your homes when the temperature is hot, but that can increase the chance for mold forming in your home. For Iowa mold removal, it's a busy time of the year. They often go into homes and check for areas of mold. When that fungus is found, they use plastic to surround the area to keep the spores in one place. Officials also search the residence to find where there's an excess of water and then solve that issue and remove the mold. Fungus can turn up in all kinds of places in the home, and that includes in your basement.
Cracks in the foundation, poor drainage, also just not having airflow in the basement. It's an old wives' tale that you're supposed to close the vents to the basement if you're not using that space, but all you're doing is restricting the airflow in that space, and you want that air to move. So, you don't want to create a stagnant, damp environment, because then mold can just start to grow. Also, if you have boxes in your basement, try to get it into Tupperware containers, because that mold will grow on the cardboard, and that will cause a problem.
According to the Iowa Department of Public Health, here are a few more places to look for mold in your home. Common locations include windowsills, laundry rooms, air conditioning systems, and refrigerator door seals.
Well, some students and staff at Cal State LA say a building on campus contains health hazards and school administrators are not doing anything about it. That group is demanding the demolition of the school's Martin Luther King Memorial Hall. The building houses the most classes on campus, and school officials recently disclosed that mold and asbestos were found in that building. The school's president says the building has been tested and no concentration of asbestos fibers were found. Students and staff say they still feel unsafe.
Today we point our focus towards the cancerous building shamefully called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Hall. Cal State LA administration is playing fast and loose with the health, lives, and safety of faculty, staff, students, and children of students. Cancer Hall is just another symptom of the sick California university system, whose shameful greed and cowardly leadership is destroying public education. Administrators line their pockets by impoverishing students and faculty coming from already impoverished communities.
The group says that over the last 2 decades, several staff members have been diagnosed with cancer, and while their diagnoses have not been directly linked to working at the school, the pattern is cause for concern. We have reached out to Cal State LA for a comment.
A Somerville woman says her family has been sick for months now because of their poor living conditions.
She says since moving into the Gates at Somerville apartment complex a few months ago, her kids, both under the age of 6, have had constant coughs, and she says she's even had an eye infection.
Anna Harris visited her apartment today to get a glimpse of what she was experiencing. And Anna, what were some of the things that you saw?
Well, Rofin, and what Holman claims is mold underneath the kitchen sink, the kids' clothes, water coming out of the bathroom floorboards, and heard her fiance constantly coughing. Dr. Kenneth Perry at Trident Medical Center says anyone exposed to mold will have respiratory issues and inflamed airways. He says it's a common problem for people to come to the emergency department for being exposed to black mold. But the best way to stop this is to just remove yourself from the environment entirely. However, Holman says financially that's not the best option right now. So that being said, Perry says anyone that is stuck in this situation should clean the areas and keep it as dry as possible. Use bleach if needed. Holman says she just wants this problem to be fixed.
I'll stand alone on this, and I'll stand high by myself if I have to, because these apartments are really not worth it, and they're really hurting our health, and I'm just really fed up with them.
The Gates at Somerville says they could not discuss this matter with me at this time, but all the family members have appointments scheduled in the next week with a specialist to check if mold is really the reason why they're sick. I'll have more from Holman and Dr. Perry at Live 5 News at 6 o'clock. Rofin, back to you.